Freedom Church. So last week I led our Teaching Tuesday, and the theme for last Tuesday evening was looking at what is devotion. Now in these teaching evenings over the next few months, we're going to be looking at this subject of devotion. And it fits really nicely in with how we move forward as a church. For Mike and I, we are really envisioning a church with passionate followers of Jesus. People who are committed to being together, committed to supporting and helping one another, committed to loving one another, committed to being outrageous in the way that we forgive and honour one another. Last Tuesday, we looked at the question, what is devotion? And as a group, we discussed all sorts of different things that came to mind when we thought of devotion. There was this theme of what it is to be wholehearted towards something, giving our all, fully committed, being profoundly dedicated to something, being fervent and zealous, being selfless. Over the course of the evening, we looked at the passage in Acts chapter 2, where it talks about what it looked like for the early church. We're all very familiar with this passage. It talks about how the disciples and the people of God were devoted to the apostles' teaching, that they shared everything that they had, that they met together, that they worshipped together daily. When you read this passage, you get a sense that this wasn't just a Sunday morning event or a midweek gathering, but these people, they were living life with one another. They were sharing all that they had, the highs and the lows. They were celebrating with each other and they were grieving with each other as well. That these early disciples of Jesus followed with complete devotion. It was really challenging for each and every one of us, and I encourage you to read that passage. Not just read the words, but spend some time really digesting it, unpacking it, and thinking about what that passage really demonstrates and models to us. The big question that came out of the evening was, can we really be this devoted? Today, in our 21st century modern day culture, where life is busy, where we've each got our own individual lives and families and things going on, can we really be this devoted to Jesus? And this is a question that we all wrestle and struggle with. But I want to encourage you, church, that I do believe that this same expectation that Jesus had on his disciples then is the same expectation he has upon us now. When we look at scripture and we read things like to be a disciple of Jesus is to pick up our cross and follow him, our only response is to be devoted. But I also shared this one thing last week that I felt challenged about. I was listening to a podcast looking at the subject of devotion, and they were looking at the difference between belief and devotion. And they were saying that belief comes from the mind. It's a choice that we make, and we all have a lot of beliefs. Maybe your Christian faith is a belief. You have a belief in God. But I encourage you, church, to not let it stop there. Not stop in your mind where you've made a choice to believe in God, a choice to follow Jesus. Because in this podcast, they were saying that devotion is something far greater, is something far more. Devotion comes from the heart. There's an emotional response. There's something that we respond with when it comes to devotion. So belief can stay in our heads, and it can stay in that place of, yes, I believe in God. But devotion is a response and demands a response. So church, I want to ask you today, take a moment, read that passage in Acts chapter 2. Take a moment to ponder and reflect upon your faith. Is it a belief, or is it something that you are devoted to? Is it going to stay in your mind, or is it going to translate and transcend down to the depths of your heart? And out of that place, you respond. You respond with devotion to one another, devotion to the things of the kingdom, devotion to following Christ with everything that you have got. Thanks, church. Have a great day. And next month, I encourage you to come along and look at part 2 of the devotion series, because we're going to be looking at some people in Scripture, ordinary people like you and me, who had ordinary busy lives, and how they followed Jesus and modelled devotion. So join us next month for Teaching Tuesday.